welcome to Scrollin' episode 135. I'm Ket, and joining me today is my special guest, Ironworks. So if you have less than 30k health, you've likely seen his skull marker over your head a time or two. He literally wrote the guide on bow ganking. He's the quick hop world champ, and he can count backwards from 3 better than anybody I know. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ironworks.
Thank you. Going, yeah, this is an exciting episode to be on with all the new Battlegrounds news coming. I'm really looking forward to this update.
Oh, man, this is the perfect time to have you on. We're like Battlegrounds enthusiasts, and this is the Battlegrounds time right here, finally.
It is a more exciting time to play ESO PvP than it has been in many, many years, I think. So
since Morrowind, perhaps, when Battlegrounds were introduced.
Yeah, might be.
I mean, I was thinking about that. Like, when's the last time we had a PvP specific thing added to the game? It was Battlegrounds with Morrowind, I think.
Yeah, some of the class editions or like balance patches have been interesting, but nothing on the level of this. The future, there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, so we'll get into it here pretty quick. But first of all, let me just ask you a few little questions just so listeners have an idea of who you are. So first of all, just want to plug this, twitch.tv/Ironworks. You're also on YouTube. Anything you want to say about those things or anything else you want to plug there?
Yeah, I'm probably more active on YouTube than I am on Twitch, but I do use both. I do mostly raw gameplay footage on YouTube. I just kind of cut to the point, get some quality matches in on the platform, and I also do occasional guides where I go into detail on certain builds that I like on YouTube. So that is definitely the place to find me.
Yeah, and very in-depth guides. Like I mentioned earlier, you wrote a super-duper in-depth guide on bow ganking. If that's something people are interested in, you owe it to yourself to check that out. I mean, comprehensive.
Yeah, I think that the video is also pretty comprehensive. I think it's like over half an hour long. I prefer reading and writing as opposed to watching videos, but I think I'm in the minority there, so that's why I'm starting to do more video content as well.
Nice. Yeah, and some awesome builds. Just a really great Theorycraft, or check out Ironworks on YouTube. All right, so can you tell us about when did you start playing, and tell us a little bit about your ESO journey, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I actually first played this game in college when it came out, and I think it was in the beta. I reviewed it for my college newspaper at the time, which dates me to some level, I guess. But I did not like the game at all. I think that it launched in a really, really rough state. So after I was done reviewing it, I quit playing until Morrowind came out, which was after the one Tamriel update when the game was completely different. And I was exclusively a PvPer. So I've been playing it's been my main game since Morrowind came out. So for many, many years, I took a hiatus right before the COVID pandemic because that was, as you probably remember, when the game was at its worst, just due to server stability. So I quit for 2 years, but I've been back for around 2 years now, and it's been my main game since then again.
That was a perfect time to take a break. That was a bit of a lull, a few years there in ESO. So. All right, next question. Just briefly, tell us a little bit about your main character and maybe some alts that you have.
Well, my main character is, as Ket kind of alluded to earlier, my bow gank Nightblade. That has been my favorite playstyle ever since I started playing this game properly. It's what I've invested by far the most of my time into, but I've played every single class at a pretty high level in PvP, but beyond the bow ganker, I think my other main classes would probably be Sorcerer and Arcanist. But I really do mix it up between all of them.
Yeah, totally. Same here. I have maybe 3 classes that I play the most, but I dabble in them all. DK is probably my worst class, I would say.
It's a tough one to play in solo queue, especially.
I don't know if I've seen you on a Warden before, and I've heard you have some choice remarks about Wardens.
Maybe we'll get into some of that in the balance change section, but I actually do have a Warden video on YouTube. It's one of my more recent videos. It's a little different from most of my gameplay videos, but it is up there.
Oh, is that the objective one?
That is the objective one.
Okay.
My favorite class, Warden, as I say.
Oh, yeah. That is the objective class, no doubt. That's all the questions really I had. Anything else you wanted to add before we dig into it?
Nah, I want to dig into the PTS. Let's get going.
All right, let's get going. So public test server version 10.2.0 is now active. This is for the upcoming update 44. October 28th on PC is the release date, and that'll be 2 weeks later for consoles, as always. So this is a base game patch. You don't have to pay for anything. Don't have to have ESO Plus. Everyone's going to have it. And there's a number of things happening here, but the big feature is they're revamping Battlegrounds, right? They're We're going to have 2 teams now instead of 3 teams.
End of an era.
It is. It's been 3 teams this whole time. I actually have always said I really like the 3-team system. I know a lot of people don't, but it makes for some really interesting gameplay and strategizing and stuff like that.
I'm going to miss the 3-team format. I think it was a pretty unique thing about PvP in this game, but after doing it for so many years, and we all know the downsides of like the 3rd team display and objective, I am like 100% down to mix it up and go to like a Team v Team format. It'll be a breath of fresh air.
Yes, totally. Like there's going to be pros and cons no matter which system we're in. I'm glad to just let's try something new for a while and see how that goes. And probably some time will have to pass. We'll kind of let the meta evolve, let the strategies evolve, and 6 months, a year from now, we'll kind of see what things are looking like. So it's just going to be 2 teams. There's going to be Pit Demons and the Fire Drakes. So the Stormlords, the purple team, no more. They don't exist anymore. 7 new maps, all new maps. So the old maps, they're gone. That's just for the 3 teams. So it's a whole new set of maps. Very impressed by the map design personally. Ira, what do you think about the maps?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to like thoroughly examine them all in depth, but from what I've seen so far, what we've played on PTS, quite solid. I think that they funnel people into fights a lot more efficiently than the maps do on the live server, so far so good.
Yeah, the terrain's really fun. A lot of the maps are very like, it kind of feels like fighting in areas of Imperial City and stuff. There's like lots of little alleyways and nooks and ledges and just tons of ways to be annoying and stuff, especially if you're like a sorcerer. You can really play with that stuff.
Yeah, I think that they really nailed the design, at least that's my initial impression. Better than I thought they would.
Yeah, I think the maps go a long way to really make it feel awesome. And so there's just 2 teams now. There's 2 different queues. We have a 4v4 mode, which they're calling the competitive mode, and then there's a 8v8 mode, which is the casual mode. So both queues, you can queue, as it is right now, you can queue up as either a solo, duo, trio, or a 4-squad. So even in the 8v8 queue, you can only have a group size of 4, and then your other 4 teammates will be some other people. A lot of rumors that that's actually maybe going to change before, over the course of PTS, so we'll see. The rumor right now is that maybe they'll limit it to just duos, solos and duos in the 8v8, which is, I hope that they do that.
That's been a contentious thing. I've seen a lot of people talking about that since PTS came out, and I can understand the concerns of like a 4-stack, like a coordinated 4-stack queuing into the casual mode and just steamrolling solo players, but I could see duos being like a sweet spot, happy medium, but I think the most important thing is this is an MMO. It's a game you should be able to play with your friends, so even if the 4-man queuing is too much, you gotta let us at least duo.
Yeah, I think we got to at least be able to group somehow. Like they tried the solo only thing in Battlegrounds before, and it sucked. I just played Imperial City that whole time. Like, well, I can't play with friends. I'm gonna go someplace where I can. So, yeah, hopefully, I think duos is a happy medium. No solution is gonna please everybody. I think duos is probably the closest, like, best compromise we could hope for there. So the 8v8 queue is going to feature all game modes: Capture the Relic, Deathmatch, Domination, Chaos Ball, and Crazy King, but just redesigned for 2 teams. There's variants on the Chaos Ball. So one variant is there are 3 Chaos Balls, at the same time. And then the second variant, still 3 Chaos Balls, but 2 of them will actually transform you. One of them turns you into a giant werewolf behemoth. The other one turns you into a vampire lord. And it's like a totally different skill bar and everything. It totally overrides your build and everything until it's over.
Yeah, you get some crazy strong abilities when you transform, it seems.
Yeah. Shout out to Wanna Buy My Dog. He is all about the Chaos Ball mode where you can transform. And yeah, you go after that vampire lord and that werewolf thing, and you just start leveling people down, man. Like, it's an OP thing that you have there. Like, it's cool because there's actually, like, you want that ball. There's a good reason to go for it. You're going to be like unstoppable for a little while.
When we were on PTS yesterday, one of my death recaps had an ability from, I think, the werewolf behemoth transform. It was like 13,000 damage from like one ability. I think it was pretty wild.
Yeah, and the vampire lord, I think, also is equally like cracked as well.
I don't think I've seen that one used yet, or at least not as often as the werewolf, but I imagine that they're both quite strong.
Yeah. So I like that because I always I don't want the chaos ball. That like hurts me. That makes me like less powerful, but this is a good idea. This actually gives you a reason to want it. So I like that.
It'll still hurt you, but it sounds like you can take down a lot of people while you have it.
Yeah. It's like kind of worth it.
What's really nice is that, as mentioned earlier, these maps funnel people into fighting. So when you get the Chaos Ball, it doesn't seem so far like you can just run away with it to rack up the points. Like you kind of have to fight while you have it.
Yeah, it seemed that way, and they seem pretty like conscious about designing these maps and these game modes to where that's not as easy to do to like cheese those objectives like that. That's good.
So far, I mean, everyone on PTS is like kind of the really try-hard PvP players, so it might pan out differently on live when we get more objective-focused players, but so far, so good.
That's very true. Yeah, we've played a lot this week, but it's our perspective is skewed because yeah, it's PTS. Only the people that are really hardcore into it are in there, right now. So once it goes live, we'll get the more casual crowd in there, and it could be a totally different dynamic.
The lack of MMR on the 8v8 thing is also its own beast. That could make live
Yeah,
very different from PTS.
I could see that changing too. Honestly, they've already made a comment on the forums. Like there was a dev comment saying like, hey, they're looking at that feedback. That they're aware of those concerns. So I would actually really look for that to change.
Yeah, I don't know if you've leveled a tune anytime somewhat recently in the last few months, but I leveled both of my Arcanists pretty recently, and doing low MMR on them, it was like walking into a preschool. No MMR I could definitely see being an issue.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, no MMR is going to be great for people who have a lot of PvP experience. You're going to walk in there and just be unstoppable. But for someone's like, hey, let's check out Battlegrounds for the first time. I wonder what PvP is like. That's not going to be fun
Yeah.
for them.
It'd be funny to steamroll players, like inexperienced players, for like 1 or 2 games, but that's not going to be good for the population in the long term, and it's really not fun for anyone, like on a long enough timeline.
Okay, so the 8v8 matches, just the 8v8 matches, will also have power ups. They're bringing back the sigils that we had originally. They're scattered throughout the map. The power ups include increased damage, super speed, damage mitigation, and one time burst ultimate. So those don't exist in the 4v4s, just the 8v8. It's like a casual mode, so they kind of want a little bit more chaos happening there, which I think that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I remember the damage increase sigil from Battlegrounds way back in the day, and yeah, you will do huge numbers if you pick that thing up.
It's a significant, yeah, and it seems like it's the same one that they had back then. It's a significant damage increase, and it's I didn't realize this before. I don't know if the old sigils were this way, but if you activate it, everybody around gets it if they're in the area, including enemies.
Yeah, I don't remember that being the case beforehand, but that is like an interesting dynamic to have this go around.
Yeah. So that's the 8v8 queue. The 4v4 queue will feature the following game modes: Deathmatch, Domination, and Crazy King. Just those three. So no Chaos Ball, no Relic. They're trying to just focus on modes that incentivize fighting. Although we've kind of found that those land grab games, that's what they're called, not flag games, land grab games, that kind of run into the same issues that we currently do. Like you have people that just sort of want to stand on flags, and you have other people that aren't so interested in that, and seems like we might run into some of the same frustrations there, but I do think that'll be alleviated a bit just because the maps are so much smaller. Like you can see your enemies right there. The fights are always happening.
I hope, because they did say on the initial reveal stream that they wanted the 4v4 queue to be more deathmatch and like PvP oriented, and I really think that they should just remove the land grab modes. They probably won't, but I could see a lot of the issues that we have with domination on live being an issue when this new system comes out.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was just deathmatch. It seems like they're always trying to keep in mind the players that maybe aren't so great at the combat system, and they want them to be able to win in a different way. You know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah.
they're always trying to kind of do that.
You'd hope that's what 8v8 is for, but regardless, I'm just surprised that they even have a quote unquote competitive system. So my hopes are still high for it. I just hope that I get the deathmatch pop every time.
Yeah, honestly, like there's a lot of feedback being given about the 8v8 mode and how to kind of dial that in just right, but really everyone seems pretty pleased with the 4v4, the competitive mode. Like the serious BG crowd is like, heck yeah, let's get in there. Let's do it. This is our dream come true right here.
It really is.
Yeah. So just in the 4v4s, there's these new things they're doing rounds now. Not every game. I can't quite tell. I think it's just random if a game has rounds or not. But basically it's a if you have a match that has rounds in it, then it's basically a best of 3 situation. Each round lasts 5 minutes and you have a finite number of lives in each round. So if you lose your lives, you're just out of the game until the round ends and you can, get back in there on the next one. And it kicks you out into a spectator mode where you can watch your teammates play while you're waiting if you want to. It's an interesting thing. I don't know if that's gonna end up being a good thing or not. It's a cool idea, at least. I just I don't like the idea of like, okay, we're permanently down a guy now, which means we have zero chance of being competitive until the next round. I'm just not sure I like that.
Yeah, if someone's down for the count, that's just going to be a snowball effect. So I'm not really sure I get why that would be a thing. I mean, it's something different, so maybe we'll just have to play more and try it out. But I'm not like seeing that change, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's what BG's needed.
Want to buy my dog and Morty? Thanks for joining us, boys. Good to see you. Yeah, I can see the positive being like, okay, that makes it where you can only die so many times in a match, so it's going to help like save your feelings if you're not doing really well. That's like the one thing I can maybe see being a good thing. Or just like if you're getting killed over and over again, you don't have to just keep subjecting yourself to that. You get a little timeout, maybe change up your build a little bit, change up your mindset, and then get back in there on the next round. I can see some upsides, but oh, and then if it's deathmatch, apparently if you wipe the team out entirely, totally wipe their entire squad, then that's considered a win for the round. And I guess the next round will just start right away. I don't think I've experienced that yet.
I don't know if it's just me or maybe the thing is bugged on PTS, but every time we queued for 4v4, I think we always got domination on this one map that had like the slaughterfish in the middle. I don't know if we ever actually got a deathmatch pop in 4v4, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's the only 4v4 map I've seen at all. It's just that one with the slaughterfish. Could be. Yeah, there was some buggy stuff. It's the first week of PTS. I think some stuff's going to have to get ironed out. Like we even ran into some bugs of like matches ending at odd times where we didn't think the match was over, but it apparently is, and stuff like that.
The wildest bug that I saw that's related to this section of the patch notes was that if you die and are in the spectator system, if you died too early, you could just get kicked for inactivity. Definitely need to fix that.
Yes, we saw that last night. Someone ran out of lives. They were waiting for the round to end, but yeah, they got kicked because they were. You can't do anything though. What are you gonna do?
Another bug I recall, this jumps back to an earlier point on the Chaos Ball transforms, was if you're in the normal werewolf form and you pick up one of the Chaos Balls that transforms you, you won't transform. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
right.
problem.
Yeah, that is a problem. Especially we had a friend in there who he's a well-known werewolf main, and I think he was really excited about that werewolf behemoth, but it wouldn't transform him at all. That'd be a bummer.
I wonder if that also fails to transform you if you're in the Vampire or the Bone Goliath ults. I don't think we've seen that yet, but it
Yeah,
could
yeah,
also
I
be a
wonder.
bug.
Yeah, that's got to be unintended. I would have to think.
Yeah.
Let's see. So there's as far as leaderboards go, there's now a single competitive leaderboard. It's going to replace the existing three, and it's based solely on the scoring from the 4v4 matches. So the 8v8s have nothing to do with it. And it's basically the same way it works right now. It's based on your medal score, similar to the current system. They're also adding tiebreakers to the scoring system. So if a match ends with both teams having the same score, the match will be determined by looking at the medals earned and lives left for the tiebreakers. And in the rare case of a true tie where everything kind of is the same, then both teams basically get second place. Essentially, is how that works.
Do we know what the leaderboard rewards are going to be, actually? I know that they've said they've improved them, but what's like the incentive for people to really grind out the leaderboard?
Um, I think they do kind of detail it in the patch notes. I just didn't put it on the outline here because we just have so much to get through. I was just didn't want to get bogged down in that. But
Right.
For the daily, I believe it. I think there's actually 3 dailies now, and you get like increased rewards for each one. So if you win one match, you get tier 1 rewards. If you win 2 matches, then you get a second tier of rewards. It's even better, and then you can do a third tier as well. So the daily is actually to play 3 game to win 3 games if you want the maximum amount of rewards, and it's basically just each tier is an ever increasing amount of alliance points, a better quality gear piece. You get soul gems and style pages. I think it's just like an increased chance for style pages, and for the third win, it's a guaranteed style page.
Most of those will probably be irrelevant to like hardcore BG players over time because they'll get all the gear and the style pages pretty quickly. But more AP is always nice. That's a good money maker if you know like how to play the markets. So that works for me.
Yeah, really just transmutes, I think, is really the way to get people queuing up there. That's really what people are after most of the
That
time.
too.
Yeah. But better rewards. And then the MMR system. So currently, right now, I have a feeling this is going to change, but in the 8v8 system, no MMR. Absolutely no matchmaking whatsoever. It's just random. Whoever's in there is who's in there. You can have someone who's been playing since launch, an unstoppable god, against someone who it's their very first day to ever step into a battleground.
It's going to be a sight to see.
I have a feeling that's going to change. And actually, there was a dev comment on the forums, that seemed like made it clear that they are looking at that. I think that'll change.
I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue of like coordinated four-mans just queuing into the 8v8 and stomping casual players, because it's not really fun for the four-man group either. But yeah, I'm sure they'll do something with MMR. Yeah.
There is MMR for the 4v4s. It works pretty much how it does right now, except it resets at the beginning of every month. Which I think in 4v4, I'm way less concerned there. That's the competitive mode. Everyone who queues up in there, they know what they're getting into.
Exactly.
Like you're going to be going up against some very hardcore people. And if you're doing a leaderboard run, you kind of want to start at 0. You don't want the MMR system to determine which teams you're going up against. You kind of want to start at a clean slate for everyone, and then the best team will just do the best. That's just how it's going to go.
Resetting on a regular cadence is the way to go, instead of your MMR just infinitely rising forever like it is on live.
Yeah.
That's never made sense.
Yeah, I like that for the 4v4. I don't know if that would work for 8v8s, because you're still going to run into, really imbalanced situations there. Maybe the 8v8 should be more like it is right now,
Maybe.
They said there's going to be more aggressive degrading of your MMR in the 4v4. So it works this way right now. If you don't play with a certain character for a certain period of time, your MMR does slowly go down, so that when you do jump back on that character, you're not in the ultra sweaties, ideally. So it's going to drop at a faster rate now.
I think they said that it would maybe drop after like a week of playing, which that's kind of interesting to me. I can see some pros and cons there, because a lot of the high like MMR BG players, like the really competitive people, we all play a bunch of different classes. So that's kind of odd. I don't know if there's a way they could make MMR account wide, but I feel like that would be a better play. But they probably can't do that, or just won't do that.
But then how will I do my smurfing, Ire? You're not thinking of me here.
That's a good point.
And on their live stream, they said that MMR is actually going to be visible to you somehow. I was looking around on the PTS. I wonder if maybe they misspoke there. Maybe I'm not looking at the right thing.
No, I recall seeing some people in another guild saying that they were able to see their MMR. I didn't see how to do it personally, but there definitely is a way to do that.
Okay, well, that's great then. I'll just have to figure out how to see that. So that's awesome. I mean, I've always wanted that. Like, where do I stand here amongst all these other players? I want to know.
Knowledge is power. That should have always been viewable for sure.
Yeah. Want to buy my dog says, Ket Smurfhawk.
Yeah. You just got to keep making lobies and queuing into the low, like the low level thing with like crafted gear that's golded out.
That's called being a content creator, Fireworks.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I think that's pretty much all the info for the new Battleground stuff. Did I miss anything, or any kind of thoughts you want to talk about here?
Yeah, I think I would just say that a lot of the opinions that you're going to be seeing on forums, Reddit, wherever, a lot of that stuff should be taken with a couple grains of salt, because right now on PTS, it is just the most try-hard, like, competitive players. You are not getting casual players on the PTS, so all the games and opinions from them are going to kind of be skewed compared to what you'll see on live. It's just kind of how it is, given the pop that's on PTS. So things are subject to change.
Yeah, totally. We've been talking a lot. We've been playing this whole week and talking in Discord to people about what it's like for the people that aren't in there, and yeah, we're always having to repeat that. Like, it's nothing but hardcore PvPers in there right now, because it's PTS and casual people aren't in there.
A lot of cross healing. It kind of feels like some Cyrodiil fights, which I'm not really a fan of. But again, that could change, and probably will.
I kind of do enjoy the scale of those 8v8s, because it is like kind of those middle-sized Cyrodiil Imperial City fights. I don't mind that so much, especially like if that is what you're into. If you're wanting that kind of scale of a fight, then you don't have to go play Horse Simulator for an hour to find it. You can just queue up and you're there. So I do like that.
I will say I do have a lot of like serious concerns about like how the objectives will play out on live, and just how much cross healing there is, maybe like incentivizing or disincentivizing current builds. But at absolute worst, I will still take this any day and night over domination on Istrius Outpost on live. Overall, it's a big improvement over the current BG system.
Yeah. I will say in all the 8v8 modes, I feel pretty safe most of the time. Even if I don't have a great team, there's just so many bodies around to hide behind and there's so much cross healing. I can usually kind of take advantage of the chaos in one way or another and keep myself safe. If you have a lot of PvP experience, I think it's kind of easy to maneuver around that environment and keep yourself safe, even if you're not, like I said, on a great team.
You can kind of go autopilot and you'll still be chilling.
Yeah. Especially if you're on a Sork or something, you got that streak. So if things do start to take a bad turn, you can kind of get out of there, assess the situation, and then go kind of dive back into the middle of the little mini Zerg there.
That is what sorcerers do.
Yeah. And I did notice on those 8v8 fights, even with these sweaty players, I think it'll be even more so on the live server, but even with all these sweaty players around, you do get these occasions where you catch somebody off by themselves, or you'll catch maybe two or three people on a little kind of mini skirmish over here on a corner somewhere. So it's not just these two ball groups smashing into each other. They kind of break up a little bit, and I think that'll happen even more on the live server where people aren't, they don't have so much cross healing and stuff keeping them safe.
Definitely. Build diversity should still be pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. At first, I was thinking like gankers are going to be having a hard time and stuff like that. But even last night, like I said, I was finding opportunities where gankers would do just fine.
As a gank main, I wouldn't necessarily have jumped at the opportunity to bring my bow ganker into the PTS game so far, but
Yeah,
knowing what it's going to
yeah,
be like on live, I'm not really going to lose sleep over it. I think that there will still be a place.
yeah. I think so too. So that's the new BG stuff. I'm psyched about it. Just the fact that they're freshening it up and doing anything new with it at all. A lot of people are going to be coming checking it out. Just the fact that it's two teams. We have our opinions about whether we like three teams or two teams, but the fact is, a lot of people really don't like the three-team thing at all, and that turns them off from Battlegrounds big time. And I think just having two teams, that's something that people who play other games, other video games and stuff, they're used to that. They're familiar with. They can understand that, and I think that alone is going to bring a lot more people into the BG crowd.
I hope it brings them into the 4v4 queue also. I really have enjoyed doing group play over the last year or so, and this could be a great influx for the organized PvP community. So I really hope that there's more teams queuing up now for the competitive mode.
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed that 'cause I remember when we were very first starting to kind of group up and do pre-mades and stuff. I remember you making some comments. You were not enjoying it so much. You're like, this doesn't feel like PvP.
It's an adjustment, yeah.
Yeah, we started kind of organizing ourselves and really making proper comps and stuff, and seeing some success. And it's a different thing entirely.
It's difficult right now because there's no middle ground between not doing it and then fighting the most optimized try hard comps. It's
Yeah,
one end of the extreme. But if there's an influx of new teams, there should be a more happy medium there, an easier way to dip your toes in the water. Because right now it is very unforgiving, which I think turns a lot of people off.
yeah. There's not a lot of mid-tier teams out there. Anytime we squad up, we're just going up freaking beasts every single time.
There are basically two teams that have been queuing fours for the last year,
Yeah.
us and then the teams that we fight against.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, that's Battlegrounds. Let's move on. Some minor changes in Imperial City. So key fragments are now called Imperial fragments, and it's a currency now. It's not in your inventory, it's in your currency screen. And I'm guessing you can't trade them anymore. I haven't checked, but that seems like that would be the case.
Oh, that's a good. I wasn't thinking of that. Yeah, I've never sold the fragments, but that could be a nice supplemental income. But I guess hooray for less inventory management, I suppose.
So other Imperial City changes. So those chests that are inside those vaults down there, those are now going to be vendors. They're, I guess, trapped in those vaults now, and they've improved the stuff that those vendors offer. There's actually going to be kind of a selection of stuff there, and also the vendors that are at home base that you find there. They've kind of improved the selection that they have there too. They detail it all in the patch notes. You can read it if you want the specifics, but just some changes there. We got some new skill styles. So the Psijic Order Accelerate and Undo abilities, you can turn those purple. The One Hand and Shield Puncture ability, this is more than just a color. It's got a lava particle effect. It looks like a whole different ability. They're going more than just changing the colors of these things. They're actually changing the animations entirely for some of these. Force Pulse as well. They got a new Force Pulse one called Wild Burn. And this is another one. The animation is just different. It's a kind of a turquoise blue color, and there's these leaves coming up. Looks like it would be a Warden ability or something like that. So more than just a different color.
I think it's cool that they've added these, but I hope that they don't like so divert from the original like animation that it like makes it hard to tell what's going on, especially as they continue to add more and more over time.
Yeah, exactly. You see that lava effect when you're like, "What the heck? What'd you just put on me, dude? What is that?" But it's actually nothing.
We'll get to it later in the balance changes in the PTS notes, but they've had a bit about like player accessibility, and I think if they keep adding a whole bunch of different like alternate animations, that's not going to help like newer players, especially.
That is true, especially with scribing. And now you have all these different visual effects happening already. Trying to parse what's happening to you is difficult.
There were a couple other skill styles that I don't think were in the patch notes. I probably didn't even see them all, but when I was on my Arcanist, I saw that you can get a blue beam instead of a green beam. So that might be cool.
Oh, so they're reskinning class abilities then.
Yeah, I also
Okay.
recall seeing. I know that Nightblade is going to get some purple ones. I think there's like a purple concealed weapon, purple in cap strike. I'm not sure if that's in this version of the PTS, but that's definitely a thing.
Okay, yeah, I don't think those were in the patch notes. That's interesting. Okay, so yeah, that's the first time. So that's the first time we've seen class skill styles, I think.
More to come, probably.
Oh yeah, those are gonna keep coming. And if you missed having companions for the chapter release, fear not. Here they come in this update. Here we're going to get a high elf dragon knight and a Khajiit necromancer as well. Which I don't really do companions, but
I've never gotten a companion. Don't know how to get them. Don't know anything about it.
yeah, I got a couple just to kind of see what it's like. But it's really not something that's worth investing your time in unless you're just really into role play and that kind of stuff.
Fair enough.
They made a addition to ESO Plus. So if you have ESO Plus starting with this update, you'll gain 10% additional alliance points and 10% additional Telvar at all times. Pretty nice.
Pay to win. Stay winning.
Okay, so let's get into these combat and balance changes. We'll start off with Dragon Knight. This one's pretty cool. The Cauterize ability, that's the healing morph of Flames of Oblivion. So it now heals up to 4 nearby allies every 3 seconds, rather than healing 1 nearby ally every 5 seconds. And then the healing per tick was reduced by 33%. So that ends up being basically an overall 11% increase in the total healing power. And they increased the cost by like 1,000.
It's really rare to see like dedicated Dragon Knight healers in PvP, but Cauterize has always been quite strong. It's just Flames of Oblivion has always been like a top 5 damage ability in the game, so you almost always see that morph, but maybe this could incentivize a new playstyle for Dragon Knights. It's a cool change.
Yeah, combined with scribing, you could really make a totally legit DK healer. I don't know if it would have a place in the competitive scene or not, but certainly viable at least.
The other existing Dragon Knight team heal ability, Cinderstorm, is also crazy strong. It's a
Yes,
really
it is.
small radius, but it is a super strong heal over time.
Yeah, and that snare is super nice too.
Definitely.
But yeah, the cauterize it's something. I mean, it's basically a AOE spammable. I think it has a really long range too, so you can spam that on people as well, and it's hitting 4 people at a time. That's very nice, actually.
That's your entire BG team in the 4v4 queue. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, and every 3 seconds automatically, or you can spam it. That's I think our friend Maddie was kind of experimenting with the DK support. With their just their total toolkit. You can have a very different kind of support with all this healing going on, plus a lot of crowd control, and you can still sort of play like a Dragon Knight, but more supportively. Kind of like that idea.
And like Flames of Oblivion, you also get Major Savagery and Prophecy just for slotting it, so it's a very efficient skill to have.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Very cool. So that's all for Dragon Knight. For Templar, we have Focus Charge. That's the base ability of the Gap Closer. So the base ability now also taunts the enemy for 15 seconds, increases the duration of major protection uh, from the base ability and the toppling charge morph to 7 seconds instead of 4 seconds, and they increase the cost of all versions to 37.80 instead of 35.10. So just very slight there. So Topple is now a taunt. The explosive charge morph, the taunt only applies to the first enemy hit. They increase the duration of the major protection to 15 seconds instead of 10. And yeah, that's what's going on with that.
I mean, more major protection is always nice. That's a huge, very powerful defensive buff. I don't see this having a big impact on PvP, though. I know that there's some taunt sets that work in PvP, but this seems like more of a PvE change to me.
Very much a PvE thing, but that increase that 7 seconds of major protection on topple is pretty nice, though. Like for me, the way I use topple, that pretty much ensures a permanent uptime on major protection. Because 7 seconds, that gives them time to get out of their CC immunity. You can topple them again, get your major protection again.
It's a very strong
So
buff, yeah.
yeah, really nice. And then the Sun Shield ability now applies minor maim to enemies in the area for 10 seconds. They increase the shield scaling per enemy hit to 10% instead of 4%. That's pretty huge. And they increase the base cost just a little bit to 45.90 instead of 43.20. I think there were some other minor changes to the morphs. I just didn't write them down because they weren't significant. But the base ability pretty significantly changed. Minor maim plus more than double the shield strength.
Yeah, that is
So
a
you might
very
see
big
that out
buff to
there.
the shield.
Yeah, we might start seeing that one out there some more. Right now, Templars don't really use that much in PvP. That's it for Templars. Nightblades, getting some pretty interesting stuff. I mean, every patch, Nightblade, man, they love Nightblades at this place.
Interesting is the way of putting it, for sure.
Interesting for sure. So I imagine you're a fan of this first one, though. The Lotus Fan morph of the Gap Closer now deals its initial hit in an area around the caster and applies the dot to those enemies hit. So it's no longer like this fan out thing after the fact. It just kind of happens right away. And so then it applies a dot to all enemies hit, but that dot has been adjusted. So it now operates more like Burning Talons or Acid Spray. It only lasts 5 seconds. It ticks every 1 second, and it's way more damage per tick. Like I said, it's like Burning Talons or Acid Spray. Very strong dot.
This is definitely a buff to the skill because generally with most Nightblade setups, you're going to be using Lotus Fan somewhat regularly. Like especially if you're doing like a Rush of Agony build, you'll be using it like every 10 seconds. So yeah, there should be a big damage increase. And also, dealing the initial hit in an area around the caster, that means that the set should proc Unleashed Terror on multiple players, which hasn't been like a super popular proc set, but this is a boon for it nonetheless.
Yeah, it seems great for Rush Blade in particular, and that shorter duration dot just makes more sense for Nightblades to me. They're a bursty class. You want to be doing a lot of damage in a short amount of time, not a little damage over a long period of time. It just makes good sense to me.
Time will tell if this is like a net boost for like the skill's damage in group play, but it probably is given how often you'll be rushing in with Lotus Fan.
Yeah, I think so. Even if maybe the total numbers at the end don't add up to as much, it's like it's more potent damage when you're doing it, like in
Yeah.
those moments. That's Lotus Fan. Shadow Cloak, here we go.
Yeah,
This is
anything
the
else happen for Nightblades? Anything major?
just this little thing. Shadow Cloak being slightly adjusted. It's actually a totally different world for Nightblades now. You're gonna have to really adjust how you use this ability. So the base ability and the Shadowy Disguise morph, that's the invisibility one, they're now a toggle ability. So while active, the ability will drain 3240 magicka every 2 seconds and disable your magicka recovery until it's disabled or removed. So it's like the old mist form, basically. In addition to this, these abilities will now grant Born from the Shadows for 10 seconds when the ability is activated, and again when it ends. And what that does is it increases your damage done against monsters, just monsters, by 10%.
That's a PvE thing.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's a toggle now. You click the cloak morph and you stay invisible until you run out of magicka, basically, or until you like tap block or do a roll dodge or something.
As is always the case when they do any sort of Nightblade change, I've been lurking on the forums and Discord and whatnot. People are saying, "Oh, this is a buff. This is a nerf. Oh, they hate Nightblades. They love Nightblades." This is a lot of contention about this.
Yeah, I would imagine this would be a very polarizing change here.
Given that it's my main class and I always play Stealth Blades, I don't really think this is much of a buff or a nerf, really. They had like a dev notes thing about this in the patch notes, basically saying this would be more, like make the skill more accessible for players since you don't have to hit it every 2 seconds. Was that an issue that new players were having? I don't really understand their reasoning here. It seems like they're trying to fix something that wasn't broken.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard anyone complain about cloak being too hard to use. You want to be invisible, push the button. Boom, you're invisible.
There are ways with this change that you can stay in stealth indefinitely. You can just spam siphoning attacks and rally, neither of which bring you out of stealth, which is cute, but I don't really see that having practical use in gameplay. But I guess there's that. It just this change doesn't really matter much. It's just going to be annoying as a Nightblade main to like have to relearn muscle memory on how stealth works.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I think. For anyone who's been playing Nightblade all along, yeah, you have this like internal kind of cadence of how you play things and stuff, and you're going to have to be breaking those old habits.
You won't have to actually click the ability again to get out of stealth, though. You could just press sprint for a split second and you'll come out of stealth. So that's fine, I guess.
Yeah, all the normal stuff that breaks you out of invis will still do it. Yeah, it's in the for the sake of accessibility, basically they say, and there's like an internal initiative to make Nightblades easy to play, right? They already have been kind of changed in such a way where like there basically is no buff management at all anymore. It's like you have an Oaken Soul build except you have both bars. So this is just like another. I think I'm guessing they have data that just shows Nightblade is like the most popular class for a new player. I'm sure that just seems true to me. And they just want it to be very, very easy to pick up and be good with. Honestly, I've always thought Nightblade's a pretty tough class to master, actually.
It
So if
is,
that's
definitely.
the very first class you're jumping onto as a new player, I could see them wanting to make that easier. That makes sense to me, honestly.
By virtue of them having stealth and stealth having no cooldown on like stealth and other like MMO games, I think it's always going to be one of, if not the most popular class in PvP, regardless of how powerful it actually is, just because people like stealth and people will hate the class because people don't like playing against stealth. That's just kind of how it's always going to be for Nightblades, I think.
Yeah, just from a roleplay perspective, it's just fun to be sneaky and stuff like
It
that. I
is.
get the appeal. Want to buy my dog says makes me want to pick up Nightblade with that change. Always had trouble clicking stealth button every 2 seconds. yeah, yeah. It seems like that'd be hard for you, dog. I get that. Pretty much it for Nightblade. So yeah, gonna have to relearn how to use invisibility. That's the biggest thing there. But yeah, for someone who's just picking up the class for the very first time, they don't have that muscle memory programmed in already. I do feel like this is going to be easier to learn
To your
how to
point that you
use.
mentioned earlier, though, it is one of the more difficult classes to play well in PvP, and it probably doesn't
It
apply to
is.
a lot of listeners. But if you're trying to learn PvP and you're like new to it, don't start with Nightblade. You'll pick up bad habits. It's less forgiving. Do Nightblade later.
There's a few reasons for that. I think for one, like it's so hard to like train yourself to not crutch on stealth all the time. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
that's a big reason. But also like even aside from that, like their combo and stuff's just kind of hard to land a lot of the time. Like you really got to spend a lot of time with the class and kind of develop. You kind of have to develop this like sixth sense or something of like you just kind of know when's the right time to go for it, because otherwise it just gets dodged or blocked every single time.
Yeah. They also don't have like as much straight up tankiness or as good sustained damage as other classes. So you need to like play in a very particular way to excel with the class, which can just be kind of tricky if you then try to like play other classes without having those fundamentals down.
Yeah. That's Nightblade. Let's move on to Sorcerer. So we are getting that hardened ward nerf. I don't know if it's a big enough nerf, but they reduced the heal scaling to match the scaling of regenerative ward, which is the other morph. So that's 10% of your max health or magicka instead of 15%.
I am shocked that they did this, and kind of credit to the balance team, because oftentimes when there's a big issue balance wise, it can take them months or even like a year or more to fix it, kind of like the old Master Dual Wield. So credit to them. They are nerfing Sorks one patch after they became kind of busted in solo queue. I'm in support of this.
I mean, it had to happen. I'm not so sure this is enough, but it's certainly, a step in the right direction.
I agree with that. I think that they probably could have also nerfed the shield amount by around 10%, but I actually like that they are being pretty conservative with this nerf. I think a lot of times they will just ludicrously overbuff something or gut it, and we'll get to something that's getting gutted in the patch notes pretty
Yeah.
soon, but I think in a lot of cases, if they would just nerf or buff things by like between 3 and 10%, that would be a lot healthier for the game. And if it's not enough or if it's too much, you can just tweak it back one way or the other. So this is a good starting
Yeah.
point. I just hope that they continue to keep an eye on this and adjust more if needed.
Yeah, I'm going to predict that it does need further adjustment just because I was already using Hardened Ward before it was buffed. It was already good, so I just didn't need any of this. I think it still needs to be nerfed.
Agreed. I mean, the max Magicka sorcerers that we see in Battlegrounds, the issue is that you can't even break through the shield, so the heal is kind of moot. So nerf the shield too, but baby steps.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, at least clearly it's on the radar. They're looking at it. And then I really like this for sorcerers, the expert summoner passive.
This is a cool one.
Yeah, this is great. It now checks for permanent pets for its conditional effects rather than any active pets. Note that non-sorcerer based permanent pets will still count towards this check, which I'm not sure what those would be.
Yeah, neither do I. I was scratching my head when I saw that.
But anyway, basically what that means is for me personally, I can put Engine Guardian back on. Like I took that off because they changed this passive a while back so that like if you're using something like that, the Engine Guardian pops up and then my health bar gets the buff and then the Engine Guardian disappears and that goes away and my max resources get the buff and it's just ping-ponging the whole time. I don't like that. This gets rid of that. It's just this doesn't count as a permanent pet, so it doesn't interact with this passive at all. Pretty nice.
Yeah, Engine Guardian has always been a really good monster set, and the pet that I'm most interested in, given this change, is probably the Atronach Ultimate, because that one's quite powerful and AoE stun, and now it won't interfere with the passive either. So this is just a really nice change all around.
Yeah, way easier to kind of dial your build the way you want it with that. So yeah, good stuff for sorcerers there. For Necromancer,
oh god,
hey, they're trying. They're sure trying.
Like a baby deer, it can barely stand up.
Man, even still, even they got some nice little quality of life stuff in the last patch, but didn't really help them a whole lot. So Grave Grasp, the Ghostly Embrace morph. So that morph now deals frost damage rather than magic damage, and it no longer applies minor maim on each hit. And its areas now apply new effects instead of their original crowd control oriented effects. So it's no longer a CC ability. So the first area, the first little circle, guarantees the chilled status. The second area applies a frost dot for 5 seconds. It's similar strength to Burning Talons and Acid Spray. And the final area generates a corpse if anybody was hit with the ability. So no more snare, root, stun like it was before. You get guaranteed chill status, a short duration dot, and a corpse.
Oh my god, if I hit them in the first patch, I'll do 500 damage. Oh, this is transformative. This is going to cause Necromancer to go from being the worst class to being the worst class. Just hats off.
Yeah, I mean, this seems worse. I mean, it was already a bad ability. Necromancers do not use this ability. This seems worse, though. I think it was more useful as a CC ability.
Yeah, this thing is going to need to do like Dawnbreaker level of damage if it's ever going to be used. Like these 3 patches each doing different things is so inconsistent, and the payoff has never been worth it. None of this stuff matters. This ability is not good.
Yeah, even if all they did was just make all 3 areas do the exact same thing, that would be an improvement. Because that way you're not having to think so much, how far am I standing from this person or whatever. You just spam the thing and it happens.
Everyone has always had so many ideas on how to fix Necromancer, and I know you've discussed them on the podcast. It would take the entire episode to talk about how to fix Necromancer. I'd just say in brief, they are just making these weird little adjustments that don't address the class's core issues. This is a whole paragraph of nothing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Very, very true. They took an ability that no one uses and they made it something that people are going to continue to not use, basically. Yeah, we won't. I literally say it every episode. I'm not even going to bother. So I'm just going to move on.
Old man yells at cloud. What's the point?
Yeah. Okay, probably the most significant nerf of the patch, as far as classes go, for Arcanist, the Impervious Rune Ward, their famous damage shield that makes them so incredibly tanky. So they reduced the size of the shield after the 1 second window by 56%. Huge. So you still get that 1 second shield that's super huge, and you still get the heal if you have Crux and all that stuff. But after that 1 second, the shield that's left is less than half the size that it is currently on the live patch.
So in the sorcerer section, I was talking about how I think it's a good move to like nerf between 3 and 10%, be conservative
Yeah,
and
not
adjust as needed.
56%.
Yeah, this is like the opposite of that. Like the sorcerer shield is better than impervious rune ward on live right now, and it's receiving a
Oh yeah.
much more minor nerf. Like what? This is crazy.
And sorcerer is a class that has serious built-in offense, so it's like it makes sense to nerf their defensiveness when they have such formidable offense. It's not the case for arcanists, like their built-in offense kind of sucks, so they need that survivability to lean on so that they can build into damage. This is a bad change for them, I think. I really do.
I'll dig into more of my thoughts on both of the Arcanist nerfs overall once we get to the Rune Guard of Freedom nerf. But yeah, this Impervious, Impervious Rune Ward definitely needed a nerf. It's been overtuned for a while, but this is way, way too harsh.
Way too harsh. First week of PTS certainly could be, adjusted again. I'm sure it will be, but yeah, that's harsh. Okay, so Rune Guard of Freedom reduced the healing of this ability by 50%. They increased the armor granted to 3,300 instead of 3,000, very minor. And they increased the duration of the armor and crowd control immunity to 7 seconds.
This
So that's
is
pretty significant there, too.
Yeah, I mean, more armor is kind of nice, but that's such a reduction in healing that like heal proc gets you out of execute range. So I think that this morph will probably be replaced with the Still Waters morph instead, just because that one's healing is untouched. I don't see myself using this morph anymore.
But this is an important ability for like pre-mades for like just getting proper buff coverage on everyone and stuff. So it's something that is on people's bars. You're probably just going to want to use that other morph.
These Arcanist nerfs seem like they would have made sense maybe a year ago when Master Dual Wield was still pre-nerfed and Arcanists were just going insane because they could just crutch on that in their defensive toolkit. But like last patch, there was the Cephaliarch's Flail nerf, and then this. It's not looking great for Arcanists right now. Like these nerfs are really harsh because right now, as you mentioned, they really just do crutch on their strong defensive toolkit. They don't have a great offense, so it's looking a little bleak right now. I don't think this kills the class, but these nerfs are a bit too harsh.
Yeah, we could definitely feel it on PTS. Like the first time we were trying it, like I would say, like it doesn't seem so bad, but I had quite a bit of support on my team, so that was skewing my perspective. But last night I jumped back on the Arcanist. I did not have nearly as much support. I could definitely feel a difference. Absolutely, you feel a lot squishier with this setup.
This may sound a little bit like tinfoil hat theory, but I've played enough of these live service games and games as a service to where I've seen a trend. Like Arcanist released and it had all these really powerful things, this insane defensive toolkit, and they were just really strong. They were one of the strongest classes in the game. Now that Gold Road is out, Arcanist is no longer paywalled behind the newest expansion. You can get it for crowns. It's really accessible. I honestly, like, right hand to God, I don't think it's a coincidence that these nerfs are coming in now that the class is not paywalled. I really don't.
Yeah, you very well be right about that. That wouldn't surprise me at all. It's a business,
It is.
So yeah, I don't think this is. I think this is too much for Arcanists. Like we just said, their offensive kit isn't powerful enough for them to be this lacking on the defensive end of things. When we compare them to sorcerers, they have now, especially, way more survivability than an Arcanist does, and a far superior offensive kit at the same time. And mobility out the wazoo, they need to rethink this Arcanist situation here.
Both of these abilities were overtuned when you compare them to a lot of other defensive abilities in the game, and so was Cephaliarch's Flail, which that has already been nerfed, so no need to go back into that one. But I do think nerfs to at least Rune Ward would have been warranted, but again, maybe like start at 10% for one of the shields and go from there. 56% is just too much.
Yeah. And then for Warden, I don't think they were touched at all. Warden's just exactly the same.
Another patch of no polar wind nerf. We talk about it off pod all the time about how they like to balance for their spreadsheet. Tell me, where does polar wind fit on the spreadsheet balance? Why has that not been nerfed yet?
Yeah, it's so out of control. I always point out the one balancing factor. It's a 12-meter radius, and I have a feeling in the devs' minds that's what they're thinking of when they're balancing it. But it's so strong, man. Especially in these like 4v4 coordinated squads. you can't compete with it. You must have that in there or you will not be able to compete. That's all the class stuff. There's some stuff going on with scribing. So for one, we're getting a brand new grimoire. I've seen some people out there using that on PTS. It's called Banner Bearer. It's in the Alliance War support skill line. It's a toggle ability. So you just turn it on and it stays on forever until you turn it off. It has no cost, but while it's active, it reduces your recoveries by, I don't know, a certain amount. Do you know if does the amount depend on the scripts or is it always the same? Do you know?
I have not used the ability yet, so I'm not sure on this, but I know that if you use a heal version of a script or a shield one, it will have a more expensive cost than using a damage one. But I haven't
Okay.
seen the banner ability specifically yet.
Okay. Um, and then, but kind of the bummer of the thing though is you do have to double bar it.
That's rough.
Yeah, if you toggle it on, if it's not on your back bar and you swap, it goes away until you turn it back on. So that makes it rough. That right there, I think, is going to keep it off of most people's bars, honestly.
That's rough for solo queue builds. It's rough for group play builds. I haven't seen a full list, and I haven't actually experimented with the skill myself. I've read that some of the buffs that it can give are quite big, but they're going to need to be really strong if it's going to justify having 2 ability slots used for it.
Yeah, you're giving up a bunch of recovery and a bar slot. It better be good. It better be real good. So yeah, that'll be coming out. They've also added support to several grimoires for several scripts, and there's kind of a long list there. The main one that Ira, you were pointing out is that bleed damage can now be applied to Wield Soul and Soul Burst.
And Ulfstill's
Pretty
Contingency,
cool.
I think, among a few others, but
Oh,
those are, I think, the 3 most interesting ones. This is probably the balance change that I'm most excited about because Dragon's Appetite, which is kind of like Draugr Light, is already one of the best sets in the game. It's just kind of been held back by the limited amount of bleed damage in the game, but this is really
yeah.
going to open up that set and Blood Drinker, which gives 20% more damage to your bleed attacks. This is going to open this up to a lot more classes and playstyles, including ranged playstyles. So I'm really eager to tinker with this one for sure.
Yeah, actually being able to use dragons on a range setup seems really awesome. Dragon's Appetite, yeah, just like you said, one of the best sets in the game, one of the best PvP sets,
It'll work
period.
very well with Force Pulse.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. But yeah, it's all you're so limited. Like if you want to use that, then you basically you're already kind of committing to other elements in your build too. You know, you don't really have a lot of freedom there if you want to use it. But this opens it wide open.
It's just kind of a weird thought. Bloody Soul, Bloody Burst, just thematically, like in the lore. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
Another interesting grimoire or a script that's being added to a lot of the grimoires is Disease, because I think Disease, unless you have a specific reason to use another damage type, Disease is often the best just because it's a really strong status effect, good instant damage. So I can see Disease being the new go-to for Soul Burst and other similar abilities, if you want to use a stamina cost one.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. More stamina costing options, which is great.
Oh yeah, another one though. I think we'll get more into this when we discuss the builds, but one that was really interesting was that Elemental Explosion is going to be able to do physical damage now, so there will be a stamina cost for that.
Ooh, that is very interesting. I like that. There's more kind of stuff for the scripts and grimoire stuff. If you want to check the patch notes, you can see the details there. But that was kind of the real interesting one there. And then they fixed an issue where many stamina costing scribed abilities could not be cast while silenced. That won't happen
We
anymore.
were noticing that a lot in pre-mades a couple of nights ago when we were fighting a 4 sorcerer team, and there were just negates all over the place. I was like, I can't cast my scribing abilities.
Uh, yeah, that'll be good. Okay, so we got some new armor sets. I think 6 new armor sets. I only listed 4 of them here because those are the ones that seemed interesting, but Ire, feel free to bring up the others if you want
You
to.
listed the highlights. Most of these are not good, I don't think.
Yeah, most of these are not great, but maybe interesting though. So there's a medium armor set called Shared Pain. You get 2 lines of max stamina, a line of weapon and spell damage, and for the 5-piece, whenever you are dealt damage from a damage over time ability, you deal magic damage back to the attacker. It scales with your weapon and spell damage, and it also reduces your damage taken from damage over time abilities by 8%.
A lot of people seem really excited about this one. I don't share that enthusiasm, but I can sort of see where they're coming from.
It seems like it might be potentially really good in Stormhaven.
That's what
You
I'm
know,
thinking.
a lot of dueling, or just if specifically you're trying to counter dot builds. It is very strong. Like we were looking at tooltips and kind of talking about different scenarios. I mean, if you're going up against a full on dot build wearing this thing, they're going to be struggling. It's going to be throwing a bunch of extra damage at them, plus reducing the damage you're taking from them by 8%.
The tooltip on PTS was very strong, given like how often it'll be ticking.
Yeah, no cooldown on it whatsoever. So every time you take dot damage, you're dealing this. I mean, I think yeah, we were finding like you could get it between 500 to 1,000 tooltip in there fairly easily with no cooldown.
I can definitely see this being a popular set for duelers in Stormhaven. Like, this will be great against Dragon Knights, but as a BG main, I wouldn't really ever want to use this because against some people, in some scenarios, it'll just be useless. It'll be like you have a dead 5 piece, and I'd rather use sets that build towards what I want to do as opposed to trying to counterplay what I think my opponents might have.
Yeah, exactly. If you're doing BGs or open world or something like that, because this is a set where you're going to have to kind of scrap with someone for a little bit to start getting value out of it. You know, if you get the jump on someone and you want to kill them really quickly, this really isn't doing anything for you there.
If you're fighting a Nightblade or a Sorcerer, or at least most people that play those classes, this set is going to do nothing.
Yeah. Want to buy my dog says I just thought about the amount of dot damage you would do as a DK with that set against a DK without it. Yeah, good potential there. Put a Pyrebrand on there too. Why not? Next one's a heavy armor set called Siege Master's Focus.
Cyrodiil set.
Yeah, for you PV door people out there, this is your new set right here. Here it is. You get a line of max stamina, a line of max health, a line of armor, and the 5 piece. When you are using a non-ram siege weapon, you are immune to knockback and disabling effects. You reduce your damage taken by 33%, and you can see enemies through walls.
Cool.
This is your siege set right here.
Have fun, you little would-be emperors, with your max stamina, max health, and armor line. All right, cool.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about that, but you know what? There are people in Cyrodiil, that's what they do. They get on those siege weapons and that's their whole thing, you know. So I imagine there will be a number of people flocking to this set. Seems very, very strong if that's what you're into.
God bless you. Go fight that door.
Kick its ass. Got a light armor set called Bulwark of Ruination. You get 2 lines of crit chance, a line of weapon and spell damage. And then when an enemy blocks one of your attacks, reduce the amount of damage they can block by 8% for 5 seconds. And that stacks up to 5 times. And it can happen every 0.3 seconds. So I think that's what, a 40% decrease to their block mitigation? Block mitigation is only 50% total. So you're taking most of it away, basically, is my interpretation of that anyway.
I see this as being another Cyrodiil set. Not a good one, but in CP Cyrodiil, there are just so many like perma-block tanks that will just stand there and literally like 10 people will be wailing on them and they just will not die and they will never run out of sustain. So this set can counter those people, but those people were kind of just trolls. You just hit them to gain like ultimate on them and you don't really have to fight them. So this addresses that, but there's not really a point. So whatever.
Yeah, this patch they added a few sets that's like specifically if you want to counter certain types of builds. They have this, you know, damage over time one. They have this block one. There's another one I didn't put on my list here, but you do more damage every time someone dodges one of your attacks. So it's like if you're trying to specifically counter certain kinds of builds, these sets could potentially be very powerful against those. But yeah, like you said, what about when you're not fighting those people? What's this doing for you?
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of the permablock tanks in Battlegrounds also that play the objectives. But again, do you really want to put on a 5 piece just to counter these people? Probably not.
Yeah, exactly. And what in the meantime, that 5 piece is doing nothing at all against other people that you actually really need some serious damage to take out.
Yeah.
And then last one I want to talk about is a medium armor set called Far Strider. You get a line of armor, a line of max stamina, a line of crit chance. And when you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability, you decrease the critical resistance of your enemy by 40% and increase your critical resistance by an equal amount for 10 seconds. That can happen every 7 seconds.
This is the one people are most excited about. I'm still kind of on the fence though.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it. I'm just seeing a lot of value here, and unless things are not calculated the way I think, but the way I'm reading this, you know, you're Character's base crit resistance is 20%. Rallying Cry gives you another 20%. So if this works the way I think it does, it just takes it all away. You have no crit resistance at all.
I haven't tested it, so I could be wrong, but I don't think that's how it works. I think it'll take 40% of what the enemy's value is. So if you have, just for example, if you have 1,000 crit resistance, it'll take 400 away from it. I don't think it works like the way you said, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so it's actually like taking away like the crit resistance number that you add up to get to the 40%. I could be. Yeah, I see what you're
If it
saying.
gets rid of all the crit resist, it's much stronger than I think it is, but I don't think
Yeah,
it works that way.
I guess testing required. It's either really good or it's trash. So we'll see.
The issue is, I mean, that's a really specific 5-piece set bonus. If you're going to use a blink or a charge, this is going to compete with Rush of Agony. And would you want to double dip and run both of them? I mean, Rush of Agony is really popular in pre-mades, but then your second set, it's like competing with something like Alkosh or Crimson Oath. Like, there are a lot of really powerful support sets. And a lot of the, like, really popular builds and four-mans and, like, pre-mades do not crit, like Mercilok or Azure Blight. So I'm just kind of questioning the value of this one, but maybe.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I doubt it finds its way to a lot of optimized squads, but that just seems like such a big number. Um, any of the other sets that you wanted to bring up here? Is that pretty much do
They're
it?
bad. Next.
Yeah, they're not great. Some adjustments to some existing sets. These are pretty interesting, actually. Pyrebrand, much needed nerf. They fixed an issue where the set could critically strike. That's not actually a very big deal. It was not intended to critically strike to begin with. It's just like a bug that causes it to crit like 1% of the time. So this just fixes that. That's really not a big thing. Hey, Constantine, welcome in, man. Good to see you. But they reduced the damage from the damage over time effect by 18%.
Harsh but fair.
Harsh but fair. I think it's still competitive with other proc sets with that value there. They increased the damage from the area of effect, the heavy attack thing, by 5%. And they fixed an issue where the dot effect had a higher chance to apply burning than intended.
Without knowing the specific like chance it had to apply burning, it's hard to say how much of a nerf that is, but Dragon Knights already have really good uptime on burning, so I'm not stressed about that.
Yeah, the dot was the problem with that thing, and what makes the set so strong right now is, theoretically, when you read the tooltip, it seems like it's basically in line with other proc sets. It does about the same amount of damage as other proc sets, but that dot, it reapplies every single time you do a light attack, and it hits upon application every single time. But it's only intended to tick every 2 seconds. But as long as you're light attack weaving, it's hitting twice as often as it's really meant to. So it's doing twice as much damage as any other proc set, essentially.
And it still will be doing that. This is still going to be a really strong set. But again, credit to ZOS for they release a set, then immediately recognize how strong it was. So I'm glad that they aren't letting Pyrebrand linger in its current state for months. This is good that they got the jump on this quickly.
Yeah, it's good. And it's a reasonable nerf, still going to be crazy strong. Because if they wanted this to be in line with other proc sets, this would be a 50% nerf, basically. So 18% seems very reasonable.
I could see them wanting to nerf this set more eventually, but this is definitely a good start because unlike the other class sets, basically if Pyrebrand was not limited to DK, every class would run it. It is like the best pressure set. It's one of the best sets in the game right now. So
not so good. Constantine says, yeah, Pyrebrand made a clear meta in 1v1 and in solo queue, just can't brawl that. Yeah, totally. It's just like too much. It's like they basically have like a whole extra 5-piece set on their build compared to you. So next up we have Dragon's Appetite. This is a pretty good thing. The stacks now last for 5 seconds instead of being permanent. And basically that just fixes a bug, more or less.
I saw some people talking, oh, this is a Dragon's Appetite nerf, it's dead. No. I mean, this is like a set you use when you always have a lot of dots on people. So sure, like in between fights, your stacks might fall off, but generally speaking, you're going to be building those stacks consistently and they're never going to fall off when you're in the heat of combat, and you'll still probably want to double bar it. So I guess a bug fix, this isn't going to change things. The set is still really good.
Yeah, still completely usable, just as usable as it's always been. So not a big deal. Gossamer, I think this is pretty. I've always been a fan of Gossamer. Not everyone likes it, but I think it's a good set. They increase the duration of the major evasion to 4 seconds instead of 1 second. That greatly increases the usability of the set. For one, you're not just strictly having to use ground hots to activate this thing, since they take every 1 second. You can just use regeneration. That'll do it. You could potentially maybe just one bard. It's kind of a short duration for that, but you could do it. I don't know. I like it. I know. There's reasons not to use Gossamer. For one, the big reason to me right now is that shielding is so important, and overhealing will not activate Gossamer. So if people are getting all these shields on them where their health bar isn't even getting touched, then Gossamer never even has an opportunity to do anything. That's a pretty harsh strike against it right now, but still, just the ability to give everybody around you major evasion is hugely valuable. We did we theory crafted an all one bar pre-made comp a while back, and in my opinion, Gossamer is the very best support set you could possibly use in that sort of situation, because the whole goal of that kind of comp is you're trying to save as much bar space as you possibly can across the whole team, and so things like this just help you with that so
This is
much.
very efficient for clearing up bar space for your teammates and coordinated group play. Yeah, Constantine said in the chat that the Gossamer buff is massive, but to you're in his points with shielding, its effectiveness and uptime will drop off, and you actually need to heal people with it. Correct? You can't proc it off of overhealing, so that is also an
Yeah,
issue.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, there are downsides to it, but still a very valuable set, and one that's worth using, I think. Even with the thing about needing to overheal people, I still feel like it's still going to be helping you out. Like say you take an ult dump, you don't lose all your health right away. You maybe lose a chunk of it. That major evasion kicks in right away, helps you against the spin to wins or whatever else is coming in behind it. It's still doing something there.
There are some pros and cons to using this, I feel. Like, even though it does kind of suck to have to slot a major evasion skill, like Quick Cloak gives you major expedition. It does some nice damage. It can stack things like Azure Blight. Phantasmal Escape from Nightblades can give you that root and like slow break. So it's tough, but this definitely is a much needed buff for Gossamer. I don't think that this will make it like necessarily the best mandatory support set, but it has a more competitive place now. But there is a lot of sets,
Yeah.
that it has to compete with, like Rallying Cry or Allo, Drake's Rush. There are a lot of good support sets out there already.
Yeah, Constantine says if Zos fixed the shielding and overhealing thing, it could be Biss. Yeah, I could easily see that. But to me, that 1 second duration was always the biggest turnoff, because that very much determines what kind of skills I have to have on my bar to be able to use it. But now I can just use regen and not have to worry about, that's already on the bar. And then this next one,
Dead set incoming.
was this needed or not? I don't know. I actually really like this set. Tarnished Nightmare. This set now has a 1.3 second delay before it deals damage in order to allow for more warning and potential counterplay.
Dead.
Yeah, so 1.3 seconds is a pretty big, like you're going to see that coming a mile away.
All they had to nerf was the sound. It gives major tinnitus. They just needed to lower that.
Yeah. The sound is all that needed a nerf, yeah. So with that 1.3 second delay, doesn't it, like when you proc it on someone, it does like this growing circle around them, right? So you can see when it's coming?
Yes, I wasn't paying much attention on PTS when I was trying it, but there's something like that. It's pretty visible.
Yeah, like you see that circle growing, throw up the block button, good to go.
You can block Tarnished Nightmare, so yeah.
Yeah. This is going to take it, this is going to unequip it from most gank blades that have been using it, because without that instant pop, coming with their gank, that's just not going to be a useful set.
1.3 seconds is an eternity in ESO PvP. That's, I think, as long as it takes for Selines to proc. I mean, it'll still work against bad players, kind of like Scavenging Maw does, but you're not going to make this pop off against good players. It's a very dead set, I think.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to call it dead, but I think it's just different kinds of builds you're going to end up putting it on. Like I have a Necro build I'm going to talk about later that's just all about a bunch of just AoE spam, just spamming a bunch of crap into the environment for enemies to have to deal with. And I'm not really caring too much about timings of things and stuff like that. I could see like a build like that, it's still being maybe useful. maybe even still useful on an Arcanist Beamer if you're like doing lots of crowd control and stuff like that, but much less useful than it currently is, that's for
I
sure.
am not surprised they are nerfing it, though. I think that what Constant said in the chat might have been reasonable, making it a 0.8 second delay. I guess doing a delay is better than removing, like lowering the damage, because if you just lower the damage, if it's not good damage, it won't be used. But I'm not really surprised, though, because the ESO PvP player base over time has really hated instant damage proc sets that are good. Like, there was Viper's
Yeah.
Sting way back in the day, there was Hrothgar's Chill when I was on hiatus,
Yeah.
and now this. I'm not. When will they learn? They keep doing these instant damage sets, and people hate them, and then they nerf them.
Yeah, a nerf was inevitable. I mean, anytime a set is on, every build, it's a nerf is going to happen.
One thing really interesting about the set that I didn't even realize until I was talking to Togrim a couple of days ago is in PvP, two like instant damage proc sets are not supposed to be able to proc at the same time. So like if you proc
True.
Winterborn, you need to wait 1 second before you proc Savara's Scales. But they forgot about that with Tarnished Nightmare, so you could proc it at the same time as other proc sets. If they just bug fixed that, even though most people weren't double dipping on proc sets, that might have been reasonable too.
Honestly, yeah, just that could have been the fix we needed. It's true.
That kills my Ellie explosion build, but again, we'll get to that later.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much the patch notes. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff. If you go and read them yourself, that's just kind of the juicy bits that I picked out to talk about here. Anything I missed, Ire, that you want to talk about before we go to break?
That about covers it. I know that we've moved on from the BG section for a while, but I think it's just important to re-up that so much could change when we get to the live servers, and there's just not a lot of opportunity to test on PTS. So far, so positive. I just hope they keep a close eye on it, and we'll adjust things as needed down the road.
Yeah, we're just at the end of week 1. We got 4 more weeks of PTS to go. I'm certain additional adjustments are going to be made. Okay, well, let's take a quick break. Ire, let's do like maybe a 3-minute break, and we'll come back and finish this thing out.
Sounds good.
Let's talk about a little Theorycraft here. Ironworks, you're the guest of honor. I'm going to let you take it first. You got a build you want to tell us about today?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot more of my Elemental Explosion Nightblade Ganker on both live and PTS. It's, I think, a build that's going to do pretty well in the 8v8 format with a lot of clumped up people. But I need to completely change the build because Tarnished Nightmare is, at least for my build, it's going to be dead. I need instant damage. So the way I've been running it, and I'm not going to get into the super specifics on the current version since I have a build video on YouTube, but in short, I've been running Tarnished Nightmare and Winterborn with Ellie Explosion, just doing big bombs, like to one-shot people. Given the Tarnish nerf, I don't think Winterborn is going to be enough to just like solo, like blow people up, so I'm dropping proc sets completely. I think my new plan is going to be to go Order's Wrath and back Alley Gourmand, just all in crit damage. And also getting also getting big weapon damage with the Vodashron's 2-hander, Merciless Resolve, and the Vampire Stage 2 passive. So I've been doing this on live. It's pretty much been the main thing I've been playing on live over the last week with this new setup. And we're getting up to like 122% crit damage and still really high weapon damage. So we're just critting really hard, really often. Like I'm getting status effect crits for like 1,300. It feels really good. I think that this is going to be my like go-to way to play like squishy Nightblades in 8v8s. It's been a lot of fun. And I'll probably do an update video on YouTube when the new patch is out.
Yeah, that sounds perfect because your Nightblade, you go into stealth guaranteed crit, so that you're going to get all that crit damage every time you want it.
Yeah,
awesome.
Being able to do a physical damage version of Elemental Explosion will also be really nice to balance out the resource drains, because I've dropped recovery like glyphs on enchant on jewelry completely, so this will be like a nice mix of like stam and magicka costing abilities. And Sundered is just a nice status effect in general, so.
Yeah, very nice. Cool, man. That's all you had to say about it for now?
Yeah, for now. I'm pretty much set in stone on the build. I mean, I could go like really granular, like talking about armor weights and traits and whatnot. I don't know how much detail.
We don't have to get that deep into it, but I mean, there's...
Watch this space on YouTube. There will be a detailed update coming soon, I'm sure. So.
All right, yeah, just search for Ironworks on YouTube. See it there. I got a quick build I'm going to talk about too. It's a Necromancer. My character, Despair. Heard me talk about her before. And, I've been on this journey. This character in years past used to be basically a hard carry for, any group that I was running around with. If Despair was there, we're going to have an easy time. And the game's been changed and the class has been changed over time to where we're not there at all anymore. And I've been on this journey to get back to that, to kind of be effective in that way again. And I'm pretty close to it. I don't know if we'll ever get back to the old Necro unless they just make some serious changes, but I'm pretty happy with how this performs. And I think of it as basically like a solo queue support build. Like if you like to play support, like if you're a healer, playing solo can be pretty frustrating, right? If you don't have teammates that are really taking advantage of those heals that you're giving them and stuff, then what can you really do then in that case as a healer? Whereas this is it's a support build, but it does a lot more than healing. It's really just kind of like a walking ball of utility. We got a lot of debuffs, we got a lot of crowd control, we have some AoE damage, we do have healing as well. So it kind of doesn't matter what kind of team we end up on because we have this toolkit where we can just kind of do stuff all the time, no matter what the situation is or no matter who's on our team or what. So the build is Winterborn as a front bar set with a Frost Staff, Wretched on the back bar with a Resto, 2 pieces Celestrix monster set. You don't see that one a lot. The Satan Seducer, Mythic Necklace, and 1-piece Trainee. So yeah, it's a lot of AoE spam, a lot of crowd control, a lot of debuffs. That's just kind of what it's all about. So on the AoE end of things, we have Blast Bones, Caltrops, Wall of Frost. We got the Skeletal Arcanist that's doing AoE, Celestrix and Winterborn. Those 2 proc sets are AoE. So we just have this cloud of damage following us around everywhere we go. Any enemy that steps foot in the fight, they're going to have to be dealing with that stuff. And it's all stuff that's happening far away from me and where I'm standing. It's not super obvious that it's me causing all that stuff. And I actually feel it's a squishy build, but I feel pretty safe because the enemies all have these obstacles to be dealing with. Or it's not super clear exactly where I even am, where that stuff's all coming from. It's actually pretty darn fun.
You don't see Celestrix a lot, but still sounds better than the class's built-in stuns. So,
yeah, I mean it's random, but that's kind of the whole point. We're not really trying to precisely line things up or whatever. We're just trying to make life difficult for enemies in general. In a pre-made, you wouldn't want to do this. You wouldn't want a random stun happening to mess up the ult dumps and all that kind of stuff. But, if you're in the solo queue, you don't know who your teammates are. They may not have any crowd control at all, so it's good to kind of have these things to fill those gaps just in case. On the CC end of things, we got Caltrops and Wall of Frost again. That Winterborn as well, so a lot of snares happening there. Celestrix is stunning people. I'm using the Soul Burst, describing ability. I have a AoE root applied to that as well. So all the different forms of crowd control are covered in an AoE form, which is really nice. And then with debuffs, I got that Mythic Satan Seducer with the AoE minor debuff always happening. Caltrops again giving the major breach. Wall of Frost giving the minor breach. We've got the charge trait, so every time we deal any damage, we're applying additional debuffs as well.
It's such a strong mythic.
So good. But just in general, like my presence just makes enemies weaker, and that's kind of what I think of what a necromancer should be. Like it's just like this debuff factory. If you come anywhere near me, you're going to be hurting. That's kind of how I think of it. It's one of those. I've always said this about Despair. It's always been true about her. It's still true with this build. The numbers never look great. You look at the scoreboard, the numbers are really bad. It's largely just because it's a necromancer. None of your pets count on your damage numbers. But plus, a lot of the value we're bringing is in those debuffs and crowd control and that kind of stuff. And that stuff just doesn't show up on a scoreboard. So I've made the comment lots of times, like, yeah, these numbers maybe don't look great, but you could absolutely tell a difference in this character's presence and how much of an upper hand your team had throughout that entire fight. So if you want to try this build, I would not get too hung up on the numbers that you're seeing at the end there.
Another long-standing necro bug that I don't think has been addressed in this BTS is that the necro pets don't proc sets, which that's an issue.
That's always been the case. It sucks. Like it's the main reason I don't use what's that healing monster set that does like the blood pool thing, like Earthgore. I don't use Earthgore because the Mender won't proc it.
Right.
So.
One day, maybe. Probably not.
Probably not. But yeah, it seriously limits like what kind of proc sets you can use. For the healing kit, I got the Intensive Mender. I got Healing Soul, has my burst heal instead of the class burst heal. I got Vigor, got the Resto Ult. And then Race Against Time. That's pretty much the bar setup. And that's my Necromancer. I mean, I got another Necromancer build, but that's the one I've been playing with here lately. It's really fun. I do recommend it. It's a really laid back kind of build. It's easy to play. You know, you're just kind of creating this disaster zone, but otherwise just sort of relaxing. I don't really get focused that much because, like I said, I can kind of hide behind this disaster zone. I also have all the Necro pets running around as well, so you kind of give this illusion to enemies that they're way outnumbered, even though it's not really the case, but it just seems so chaotic. People really kind of start panicking and they just kind of want to get out of that area rather than trying to focus you down. I actually feel very safe in this build, even though it is very squishy. Let's get into some emails here. Scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. That's the email address. If you'd like to send us an email, I'd certainly appreciate it. You can ask us any questions, make any suggestions for the show, say hello, shout out to a friend, really anything you want. It doesn't have to be ESO related, or it can be. Scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. First email comes from Glowtree Glass. He says, "Hey there, thanks for all the work you do bringing us the podcast. I'm working up my Magicka Frost Warden, and I'm looking for people to PvP with as I experiment with different setups. I've been using Ice Furnace along with Frostbite, but that kind of locks you into using 2 arena weapons. I want to run max crit damage with Nunatak, so I'm considering front barring Draugr. I have a bunch of other PvP tunes on different alliances, but it seems my builds are kind of underpowered right now, plus I'm rusty." So no real question there, just writing in to talk a little Theorycraft. Always appreciate that.
If you're feeling a little underpowered with that build, it's probably fair to note that a Warden build like that is not what I would consider like a solo carry, like pop-off build. That build can definitely do a lot of damage, but without like an execute, like Executioner or Spin to Win or something, it's might have difficulty like securing a lot of kills if there's like Templars, Nightblades, and Sorcerers in the battleground with you.
Yeah, the only really offensively threatening wardens I think I've ever seen in recent memory are those Mechanical Acuity,
Yeah, those builds go hard.
Northern Storm. Yeah, if you're wanting to just do a bunch of damage and get a bunch of kills, was it Luca Cash or someone on YouTube? They have the build that basically everyone is copying, and that's, I don't know the whole build, but I know Mechanical Acuity and the Northern Storm Ultimate is the main gist of it.
Ice Furnace Wardens can definitely still be good, but I don't feel like you need to be so incentivized into always building frost damage on them anymore ever since that passive change patch ago. It can still work, but don't feel like you're shoehorned into that. But if you do want to do that setup, you said you were considering front barring Draugr. That's definitely the play. That will be the most damage along with Ice Furnace for sure.
Yeah, put Frostbite on both bars, put Draugr on the front bar. That will be a ton of AoE pressure.
Ice Furnace on both bars, not Frostbite.
Oh yeah, my bad. Frostbite on both bars, Draugr on the front bar. Yes, that's what I meant. I'll add to, if you're feeling underpowered in CP PvP, that's just what CP PvP feels like to me. I always feel underpowered with champion points. Just everyone has so much healing, so much defensiveness. I just can't kill anyone in Cyrodiil or anything.
Yeah, and an Ice Furnace build will never 1v1 any halfway competent player in CP. That build just doesn't have enough burst. It's a good build, but it's not built to like 1v1 people.
Yeah, you might just have to do that Mechanical Acuity setup for that. Nunatak, I'm not sure Nunatak is the way to go. Maybe in like big group fights where there's a lot of people and a lot of stuff on the ground and they can't tell that it's there, maybe. But I don't think I've ever been significantly affected by that monster. It's very heavily telegraphed and easy to avoid. I'd maybe consider something different there.
Battle Orgs would be good. Just run over them with Northern Storm. Even without mechanical acuity, you'll still do good. Or you could just go Mythic and like a one-piece Magma Incarnate for sustain.
Oh yeah, always good there too. That new Saint Seducer Mythic. I mean, that's been on basically every build, including Wardens. It's definitely a good one. It's a good one. Well, thanks for writing in, Glowtree. The next email comes from Chumpy/ChatGPT. Here we go. This definitely reads like it came from AI, too. It says, hey, Scrollin' Podcast gang. I'm a PvP junkie with a Stamsork build that's more confused than a Khajiit in a Nord tavern. With all the latest class changes, I'm trying to figure out how to turn my Stamsork into the ultimate BG Wrecking Ball. What's the secret sauce for making my rotation so good that even the enemy's pets will be scared? And any wild tricks or hilarious tactics to make my foes question their life decisions? Looking for some pro wisdom to make my Battlegrounds adventures as epic as a Daedric Prince's party. Thanks a million, ChatGPT. What was the prompt to get that to spit out there?
When I like formulate my response to this, I want to like also try to talk like Chat GPT, just in like stupid slang, but I feel like I'll like lose the bit halfway through if I'm trying to actually theorycraft.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, there's always everything's like a thing. So I'll just start with the real question that was asked here. What's the secret sauce for making my rotation so good? For a sorcerer, the secret sauce is overload. That's the secret sauce. And I really don't have any further elaboration on that. Just put overload as your ultimate, and you will be doing a pretty good amount of damage no matter what your build is.
Couple different ways to build a Stam Sork. I would shout out to Eman the Chosen. He is one of the best sorcerers that plays this game. I don't know what his specific build is, but he has a really good melee Stam Sork setup with like Executioner, and he uses the two-handed ult. But if you wanted to go more of a ranged thing, or even melee, I think that Dragon's Appetite will be good next patch. You can use one of the new bleed abilities, and Sorcerer has a lot of multi-hits like Bound Armaments and Crystal Weapon. That would be good with Dragon's Appetite. You could also do a ranged setup. One of my favorite sorcerer setups is with Snipe, the Wield Soul with the Class Mastery, and Crystal Weapon. It's a lot of like little hits hitting at the same time. So like Draugr front bar, Wretched Vitality back bar, which allows you to like go all in on damage on your Mundus Stones and on your jewelry enchants. That's really good. Super mobile, a lot of range. There are a lot of ways to build the melee and ranged setups. I think generally you'll get a lot of mileage for solo queue out of like building pure stats as opposed to proc sets though.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite way to play a Stam Sork is to basically build a Mag Sork, but then my I bet I have like a stamina spammable and spin to win, basically. But otherwise, it's like, you're using Curse and all that stuff. But Stam Sork's awesome. So thanks, Chat GPT and Chumpy, for writing in.
Beep boop, beep boop.
That's our only two emails. So scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. That's the email address. Please send us an email. If you're looking for a friendly PvP community to be a part of, come check out Stoon's Goons. It's the official guild of the Scrollin' Podcast, and it's the best named guild on the PC NA, Xbox NA, and PlayStation NA servers. We're on all three. In-game membership is encouraged, but it's not required. As long as you're on the Discord, you're a fully fledged guild member, and everyone's welcome. We'd love to have you. Send an email to scrollandpodcast@gmail.com. Just ask for an invite, and we'll send you an invite to the guild or the Discord or both. If you find yourself wishing that Scrollin' was a weekly podcast, well, head on over to patreon.com/scrollinpodcast. Sign up to receive Stoon's Boon for $3 a month, and that gets you access to a few extra goodies, including the Booncast, which is a shorter episode that I do on the off weeks. So you get a little Scrollin' every week. Other ways you can support the show, you can make a one-time donation at paypal.me/scrollinpodcast. Really big way to help is just spread the word. The easiest way to do that is just send people to scrollandpodcast.com. It has all the links, all the information that they need, where they can listen on their platform of choice, where they can contact us and everything else. It's all there. Scrollandpodcast.com. Another big way to help is just open up the Apple Podcast app, give us a star rating, and especially a written review. That makes it so that it's just easier for people to find our show. And probably the best way that anybody can help is just come join our community, be a part of the Students Goons, play ESO with us, talk about builds and stuff like that with us. That all makes its way onto the show, and the show really would not be the same without the community. So come join us, scrollingpodcast@gmail.com. Got some shout outs here. Shout out to the chat. Sir Newbie, didn't see you come in. Welcome, dude. Also, Morty, want to buy my dog. Constantine was here earlier. Thank you guys for joining us. Really appreciate it. Shout out to our friends Uncle Sam, Napalm, Slavka, Want to Buy My Dog, Miss Yusha, Maddie, Pack of Ferrets, Knox DeVille, Sudica, Kurzed, Outlaw Red, Sir Newbie. I'm sure there's a bunch of others. We've all been playing a lot here lately. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, fellas. Shout out to the Elder Goons, the OGs, the people that have been around for a long time. We really appreciate you guys. And shout out to the Booner Goons, our Stoon's Boon recipients, the Patreon supporters. Thomas, Grizzly Khan, Gummy Bear, Toadster, Pork Body, Taggart, Mother of Dragons, Jim, Sudica, Maxwell, Derpenstuff, Brewerman, Dudagon, Redhead Monster, Chumpy, John E. Danger, Joe, FK, Bulby, Mr. Windsor, and we got a new one, Sammyverse. Thank you very much, guys. It helps so much. You really have no idea. And a final shout out to our very special guest, Ironworks. Thank you very much for being here today, man.
Thank
It's been
you.
fun.
It was fun. This time flew by. It was this is a big week for ESO PvP. So glad to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited about this, and I can't wait to just stop the recording, get to editing, get this thing out there. I think it's going to be a juicy one. Any final plugs or any final thoughts before we sign off?
Yeah, I know I didn't go super granular on the elemental explosion build, like the bar setup and whatnot, so I would just reiterate, check the YouTube. There will be update videos out for probably that in the Bogank build, which I don't think is going to change, but yeah, it's going to be a whole new meta, a lot of different builds that are going to be able to work, so yeah, hit me up on YouTube if you want like more build videos, things like of that nature. I'm primarily active on YouTube, so I want to do more content. Tell me what you want to see.
I will vouch, quality content. Highly recommend checking out Ironworks. Okay, well, I think we're going to call it right there. Thank you all very much for listening. We'll see you next time.